Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're joining us from today. Thank you for taking the time to join live or taking the time to watch on playback. My name is Gabriela Hernandez. I'm your SYSPRO Alliances Manager, and I'm thrilled for today's Extended Solution Showcase. This is our first in 2025, and it's really great to kick it off with QBuild, who's a longtime certified SYSPRO ISV partner now for over 7 years. I'm really privileged to introduce our great partner, Carson Fletcher, Solutions Engineer with QBuild, who will discuss CADLink for SYSPRO and how it can help transform your engineering and production process seamlessly. First, we will set the stage with a couple of housekeeping rules and guidelines. If you want to move to that slide, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this webinar will be recorded and the playback link will be sent out to everyone that's registered, both attended and not, as soon as possible. Typically, we see a couple of business days. All attendees are muted, and you can feel free to still sound out in the Q&A window, which will be addressed at the end of today's session. And without further ado, I leave you in great hands with Carson. Go ahead and take it away, Carson.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabby, and thanks everybody for coming and joining us today on the first webinar of the year. I'm really happy to host this with the CISPRO crew. So we've got a few things that I want to get to today, and mainly what we're going to be talking today is about CADLink and engineering integration to CISPRO. Um, Before we do that, I'm going to provide a quick introduction to QBuild, the company itself, the makers of CADLink. That's where I work, and talk through some of the current pains and band-aids you might be feeling or applying if you might need a solution like CADLink before getting into features and benefits, and then a demo of CADLink so you can actually see what the tool might look like. At the end, I'll share a testimonial of one of our customers and show you some places where you might find more information like that. As an introduction, I suppose I'll introduce myself first. My name's Carson Fletcher. I am the CISPRO partner manager and main rep here at QBuild, so I handle everything CISPRO integration here at QBuild. Um, QBuild software is an engineering the ERP integration company. So we have over 20 years of experience. We've been in this business. We've got, like Gabby said, 7+ years of CISPRO partnership. We've accrued over 50 CAD, PDM, PLM, and nesting integrations in the time that we've been doing this. And all told, across all of our integrations, we've got just about 2,000 customers. Um, we are a CISPRO certified global ISV partner. We were really happy to join that program when that kicked off. And so we partner closely with CISPRO on all of the CISPRO integrations. So I mentioned 50. There might not be 50 logos on the screen here, but here are the some of the big names that you might recognize. So we've got SolidWorks, Autodesk, Siemens, PTC. We've got some nesting software there in the bottom right, and even and more at the bottom. I couldn't fit all 50 in here, but this gives you a good mix, and you can see that we do integrations with a bunch of different software and software providers. So QBuild is the company, CADLink is the product, but we do have some other products that solve other problems in the engineering to ERP integration space. Just a couple I'll highlight here, and if they sound interesting, feel free to reach out. One would be ECX Manager, which is a centralized location to manage your ECR, ECN, and ECO process, and manage that in conjunction with the handoff to CISPRO. There's also NestLink, which is that nesting software integration. So if SigmaNest or ProNest, if any of those names or logos were familiar to you, NestLink is the tool to link those kind of software to CISPRO. But the main thing I'm going to talk about today is CADLink. So CADLink is a direct point-to-point integration between a CAD, a PDM, or a PLM system to CISPRO. It's a real-time BOM comparison, and CADLink will make that sync happen in one click. CADLink is the tool that we're going to be using to synchronize items and bills of materials between what I have in my CAD or my PDM or my PLM, whatever that engineering system is, and CISPRO. It's kind of our flagship product. So this was, like I said, our flagship product. This is what started it all back in around 2002. Today, we're a certified global ISV partner with CADLink, and the main integrations for the CADLink piece are there on the screen. Um, like I was saying, if you don't see a logo here, we've probably looked at it before or done an integration. We're always adding new logos and new integrations to the stable of offerings we have. So let's talk a little bit about the symptoms. You know, if you're in an engineer to order or a manufacturing company, discrete manufacturing company, you might feel some of these. And so I wanted to walk through some of these to see if any of these strike a chord. You might hear that there's an engineering bottleneck, or perhaps you need to hire more engineers. Maybe that means they're spending too much time on the data entry into SYSPRO. You know, they're doing their great engineering design work, but then they're spending maybe double that amount of time entering information into SYSPRO. Maybe you've got like a complicated structure, complicated bill of material in engineering, and you'd really like to have that in SYSPRO to carry that through and carry that full visibility of all the levels. But maybe that's too complicated, too much work to create, so you just do maybe something, some sort of partial BOM in SYSPRO. That's another thing that we hear sometimes when we're talking to prospective CADLink customers. Maybe you experience some low project throughput because of that slow transfer of data from engineering to SYSPRO. Maybe projects and jobs are delayed just due to data entry. You know, all the work is done. We just got to get it into the system so that we can actually take action on that. And that's another thing that CADLink can help with. And then lastly, maybe most obviously, BOM data errors. You know, maybe you've got a bill of material in your CAD, and once it's entered into SYSPRO, perhaps a wrong character was entered. Someone entered an you know, they read L on one screen and entered one in the other. They created the bill of material in SYSPRO and with an error, and those errors can be costly. They can not only lead to confusion, but also maybe some wrong parts being purchased or brought to the floor, and those can add up in cost. So let's talk about some of the band-aid solutions that when we're talking to someone that's a new CADLink customer, we see them using. First is the there's brute force pushing the data in, typing it in, and blind push. So brute force, maybe what you're doing right now, there's zero software cost, of course. You're just entering things in to SYSPRO. But like I was saying before, that's error prone, right? We can create a wrong bill of material. We can miss parts. We can mistype parts. Um, it's going to open yourselves up to different errors, but also be very time consuming. So this might be okay if you're making one change, you know, over the course of the year, or very few changes over the course of the year. But the moment you start to get into more complicated bills of materials, or you're making more changes as you're growing and as you're scaling as a business, you need a better solution. So maybe blind push is where you go next. It's slightly faster. So what I mean by a blind push is maybe you've got a some sort of Excel import and export scenario. There's some sort of custom tool that was built internally. This is going to be faster than just typing it in, of course, but it often requires massaging of the data in both sides. So it's never as simple as just grab my information from the CAD. There's going to be a bunch of manual effort and work to get that to move both ways. And there's often no bidirectional connection. So if you want any information to flow back to the CAD and update the CAD model or the engineering information with SYSPRO info, then that's often going to be much more complicated to get in a kind of a blind push situation. Um, oft, Often they're reliant on a single person in IT. So if you've got some sort of custom tool, maybe that's dependent on one person. If that person leaves, then that black box of whatever that tool is becomes impossible to fix. So we see that quite a bit with new customers of ours, where they say, "Hey, you know, we had this tool, somebody built it 10 years ago, and now that guy's retired, and no one knows how it works." So that's where having a solution like CADLink come in and be you know, an out of the box tool that is supported by our team here is a huge saver. So why CAD integration at all? The idea here is that we're linking engineering directly with SYSPRO. It's a bidirectional data exchange, like I was saying before. So we're integrating and creating and updating information in SYSPRO, but also able to pull some of that information down. So that when you look at the same, say, part number or stock code in SYSPRO and in your CAD, when you look at that same number, the same information is in both systems. So you can be confident that you're looking at the same information that you might see in engineering. It's eliminating those data silos that can cause a lot of headache and cause a lot of confusion when two departments or two different folks are trying to talk about one part. A typical CADLink customer of ours maybe looks a little something like this, fits one of these descriptions. They're obviously a discrete manufacturer, so they're using a CAD system. Now, that could be a mechanical CAD system. That could be an electrical CAD system. We have electrical CAD integrations as well, but using a CAD system, perhaps obviously. Maybe you have custom or engineered to order products, something that you're building specifically for one customer, or a product line that you're making lots of different changes to. Perhaps you have large assemblies or machinery, large bills of materials in general. Um, the moment you make one change to that sort of a large bill of material, you want a system to help you make that same change in SYSPRO, something that'll be able to tell you exactly what's changed and then go ahead and make that change without you needing to, pull two records up on either screen and try and figure out what exactly is different just by the eye test. So some common industries, heavy equipment manufacturers, like I was just saying there, industrial machinery, folks in things like aerospace, robotics and automation, medical equipment. They've got really stringent requirements on making sure that that bill of material is accurate. That accuracy, that bill of material is really important there. So any of those kind of industries as well. And then things like tractor trailer or any kind of custom automotive is also a pretty good fit for CADLink coming in and helping with that transfer of data. But really the big things are if you're making uh, consistent changes to bills of materials, or you've got a large bill of material that you make changes to maybe a little less consistently, but you still need assistance in making those changes to SYSPRO. So the CADLink benefits then. The benefits of using the system, number one is reducing engineering costs. Right? We've got these engineers and they're doing a great job in design, and we don't want them spending a lot of their day doing data entry. Now they're highly paid folks, they should be working on the next great engineering change. So CADLink is going to help them eliminate that double, maybe triple data entry. They're going to be entering the data once on the CAD side and using CADLink to sync it up with SYSPRO. CADLink's also going to help improve the accuracy going from engineering to production. So, like I was mentioning before, if you get a wrong part number, description, or anything like this entered into that bill of material, that can introduce some wrong build situations, purchasing errors. Maybe you got to scrap some parts because of these kind of errors, and improving that accuracy, making sure that what SYSPRO is, running MRP off of and creating jobs and this sort of thing is using that great data that is brought over from CADLink and engineering. So CADLink's going to help you reduce scrap, improve the purchasing accuracy, and eliminate those wrong build situations where maybe the wrong part number or wrong part was added to that build material. And lastly, maybe obviously we're going to accelerate that engineering data transfer. So because we're not going to have the engineers or maybe perhaps maybe even a separate person hired just to do data entry, they're not going to be spending all of their whole day entering data into SYSPRO. CADLink's going to be able to do that in a much faster time scale. So we're talking a minute, a couple of minutes depending on the size. And that just allows you to go to that next step in SYSPRO that much quicker. You can go from design to manufacturing or design to estimating just so much quicker when you have that direct integration. Okay, so CADLink. So there's a couple of options for this kind of integration. The CADLink advantage is really in a couple of different areas. One of them is compatible and just features. So CADLink is fully compatible with structures and stock codes in SYSPRO. So if you want to use CADLink to create stock codes, create structures, update stock codes, update structures, you can do that. We can go directly from a CAD model or an engineering system to update or create those materials. But we're also fully compatible with estimates and non-stock codes. So if you want to use CADLink to add the list of items that you've got in your design to an estimate, maybe not a bill of materials straight away, but directly to an estimate, then you can use CADLink to do that as well. And also SYSPRO ECC. So if you're using the ECC module in SYSPRO, CADLink is also fully compatible with the ECC. You also have, there's a few other things here I'd like to mention just in the CADLink advantage, direct contact with a developer and a project manager on our team. So one of the things I like to highlight that sets us apart is we're really recognized as kind of the gold standard in the manufacturing ERP industry, and our implementation team is a big part of that. So they, during the course of the project, if you're looking at moving forward with CADLink, we assign you a direct technical resource, but also a project manager resource. And that project manager can help understand exactly what your needs are, be with you the entire way through the implementation, and really help with that implementation fee, or the implementation rather. The fee is a fixed fee implementation as well. So it's a one-time cost. We'll set you up with CADLink, and the team is great, and they'll work with you on training and all this, um, and get you set up with CADLink. And lastly, I wanted to mention that we've got a great standard CADLink. It solves a lot of problems that are common to that folks are looking to solve in this space when they're doing engineering to SYSPRO handoff. But everybody's a little bit different, and we recognize that. So if there is some specific gap that you need to solve, need to bridge there, our team has the experience and is willing to tailor CADLink to solve your specific problem. So we have the team that has the know-how and the experience, and we don't shy away from saying, if you want to solve this exact problem, we can go ahead and do it, and personalize CADLink to fit that problem. Okay, so let's take a look now at a demo of CADLink. Now, we have a lot of different CAD and PDM and PLM integrations, but I'm going to show SolidWorks here. Now, CADLink is going to look identical, really, no matter what CAD, PDM, or PLM system that you're using. I'm going to use SolidWorks here. It is one of the more common ones. So I'm now in SolidWorks. You can see I've got a model opened. And for the purpose of the demo, you can think of me as an engineer. Right, I've got a model here in SolidWorks, and we're going to make some changes to, we've already made changes to this model, and now we need to make those same changes in SYSPRO. We need to update items, perhaps update stock codes, update the structure to match, and make sure that what we're using in SYSPRO is matching what was in engineering. So rather than open up SYSPRO and try and type all this in manually, or try and do this sort of awkward two-step process where I've got to make sure everything's 100% right before it gets into SYSPRO, I'm going to load CADLink and run CADLink on this model, and CADLink will do all that for me. CADLink is accessed here in our Tools menu. You can see an option for running CADLink, and here I can run CADLink against either the structure or the estimate. I'm going to run the structure, but again, CADLink looks identical in the interface here, no matter how we're launching it. When I run CADLink, CADLink is now going to look at the structure of this bill of material that's coming from the CAD system. So in SolidWorks, it's going to look at that left-hand side where the assembly and part files are, and that'll slightly differ on the CAD system, but at the end of the day, CADLink will grab that bill of material from the CAD, and using the mappings that we have set up in CADLink, run a comparison against what we might already have in SYSPRO. So this screen here, this is the main CADLink interface. On the left-hand side, we've got our CADLink BOM grid. So this is the same multi-level bill of material that we had in SolidWorks. And each of the different colors on the screen are CADLink's way of telling me, the user, what might be different between what I had in SolidWorks versus what I have in SYSPRO. So let's talk through the different colors here. Um, as I was mentioning, every color here is CADLink telling me something different about what is in either side, SYSPRO and in this case SolidWorks. So as you might imagine, any of these rows that have no highlights or are entirely in white here, these are parts that already exist in SYSPRO. CADLink sees this part number in SolidWorks. It looks to SYSPRO to find a match, and then it compares things like description, um, quantity on the bill of material, unit of measure, part category, any field that we want to map between SolidWorks and SYSPRO here. And in this case, didn't find any difference. So there's no highlighting on this row. Um, this part is already synced between SolidWorks and SYSPRO. Now, if CADLink did find a difference, it would highlight that to me in yellow. So that's what I can see going on with this part here. We've got a couple of yellow highlights here. So in this case, CADLink finds this part number on the SolidWorks set. It finds a match in SYSPRO, but when it runs the comparison, it sees that there's a difference in description here. Now, with this difference in description, with this yellow highlight, CADLink sees that difference, highlights the field to me in yellow, so I know that there's a discrepancy here. And I can actually click on that yellow highlight and see what that difference is. So here it's maybe a bit of a smaller difference, but CADLink notices that that CAD description and the ERP description are different, and it highlights that. And I can click in here and see exactly what that difference is. In this window, I can actually make a selection. So in CADLink here, I can go in and say, yeah, I want to keep using my CAD description, in which case it'll leave that value there in the interface and update the existing SYSPRO stock code with this description here. So CADLink, when I hit save in the top left, which is how I'll commit my changes to SYSPRO, when I hit that button, CADLink will update this existing stock code in SYSPRO with this new description that's come from the CAD side. So we can update existing records in SYSPRO, update existing items and bills of materials, proper quantities and descriptions and values coming from the CAD side. But I could also selected my ERP value. It's also not a great example for my demo here, but if I come back to my previous one, perhaps, and in this case, it might actually be true, that I want to use my ERP description here moving forward. I actually don't want to use MTL for material. I want to have that properly spelled out, perhaps. Well, in this case, what I can do is I can actually select that value, and that will update it in the interface here. And now if I were to hit save in CADLink and commit my changes, CADLink will update this value back to my SolidWorks model. So CADLink is capable of writing bidirectionally. I can, at the same time that I'm updating SYSPRO to match engineering, I can pull information down from SYSPRO to update back to a SolidWorks, in this case, custom property that I'm mapping to for description. Now that functionality does depend a little bit on the specific CAD system, PDM or PLM system that we're working with. Some only allow us to read information, but a good majority of the different CAD systems allow us to write back information to those files. SolidWorks, Inventor, the big ones there. There's no problem in writing that information back to the CAD to keep it synced with what's in SYSPRO, if that really was the value we want to use moving forward. These values, these options that I'm selecting here, whether or not we want to use CAD, ERP value is the default here, that can all be set in the settings. And there's a lot of options in the settings in CADLink that make it flexible in terms of the logic that we can use, which one, if we always want to use the CAD value moving forward to update SYSPRO, you can set a lot of that stuff in the settings. Okay, let's talk about these green parts. Anything in green is a brand new part of SYSPRO. So any of these green line items here, CADLink sees this part in my SolidWorks model. It then goes to SYSPRO, tries to find a matching stock code, but in this case doesn't find it. And so CADLink highlights this row to me in green to let me know that this is a brand new stock code that CADLink will create for us. And it's going to create it with all the information that it's pulled from engineering. So it's going to take our part number, it'll grab the description that we've mapped, as well as the proper quantity and add it to that bill of material in SYSPRO and set up any of these other fields that we want to set up in SYSPRO. So not only can we update existing items, but CADLink can also create new items as well. And we can do it both in the same instance here. I don't have to run CADLink once for updating parts and another time for creating ones. I just run CADLink on a model. It runs its own comparison, shows me the results here, and then I hit save and update SYSPRO. So everything here in green is new, doesn't exist in SYSPRO. The same thing goes for, say, this row here. This is a subassembly, and this subassembly here is also highlighted in green, meaning that this stock code doesn't exist, but also the bill of material doesn't exist as well. And with CADLink, if I hit save here, CADLink will create all the items and bills of materials. So it's really running CADLink on their model. It does the comparison. It shows you what's new, what's changed, what's different, and can make that change in SYSPRO all in one go. Now there are a couple of different colors left on the screen. Next, I'm going to talk about, we've got a few parts here that are all in gray. Gray parts are parts that are on the bill of material in SYSPRO, but aren't on the BOM in our CAD or our engineering system, in this case, SolidWorks. So these are parts that maybe have been removed in the latest version or revision of this bill of material. Maybe they've been replaced by something else. For whatever reason, they're not in the latest engineering BOM. And so CADLink will remove them from that SYSPRO BOM in order to keep it synced with what's coming out of engineering. So not only can we create new BOMs and add items to that BOM, we can also take parts off of that bill of material, that structure in SYSPRO, to update it with the latest from engineering. Now, all of the parts in gray, this is something that maybe you want to remove, right? It's not needed anymore on the new version of this bill of material. Maybe it was replaced with something else, like I was mentioning. But you might be able to think of parts that you need on the SYSPRO bill of material that you're never going to model in your CAD model. And examples of those kind of parts that we run into are maybe nuts and bolts. Maybe you don't model every single one of those. Perhaps something like paint or glue or another consumable like that that you're never going to model, or maybe even packaging or instruction manual or something like this. Now, I might need that packaging in my bill of material in SYSPRO, but I'd never model that alongside the rest of the model in SolidWorks, let's say. In CADLink, we can actually go ahead and add those kind of items to our BOM. If I click on one of our rows here and add a manual part, CADLink will add a new row at the bottom here in blue that I can then search through SYSPRO for an item, for a stock code here to add. So maybe I want to search for a nut here to add to my bill of material. Maybe I didn't model all of them when I was doing this, and I want to find a nut that I can use here in my bill of material. So when I search for a nut there, it's going to look through the item codes if it cooperates here. So it's going to look through that list of item codes. Here you go, the little hiccup in connectivity here. But it's going to look through the list of item codes, searching for something with nut in the description, and then I can grab one of these and add them to my bill of material. So maybe I need, maybe I need this one here. I think I don't have this one. BOM. When I do that, it'll fill in that blue row, grabbing all of the information that about that part from SYSPRO, and then I can change the quantity here to dictate how many I actually need on this structure. So with the manual parts, I can not only synchronize the engineering information, everything's not blue here, to make sure that SYSPRO has everything it needs from the engineering side, but with the manual parts, I can also add additional manufacturing information about this bill of material, maybe additional parts that aren't from the engineering side that still need on that manufacturing end. The last color I'll see here, that we'll see here, are these two red highlights. The red highlights are part of CADLink's data validation. So hand in hand with creating new stock codes, creating new structures, estimates in SYSPRO, is making sure that the data that we're sending to SYSPRO follows any of SYSPRO's rules for that particular data type. So if I was just trying to do a blind push of parts and bombs into SYSPRO using some sort of import process, I might need to try and remember all of those rules and manually make sure it all lines up. But CADLink here is actually going to do all that for me. So CADLink knows the rules that SYSPRO has for, say, creating a new stock code, and will check the data that's coming out of SOLIDWORKS for me and flag any issues. So in my case here, the SYSPRO I'm connected to won't allow me to create a new stock code without a description. So CADLink knows that, and it catches these two parts here that don't have a description coming out of SOLIDWORKS. So it's highlighted that description there in red to let me know that, hey, this description is empty and you can't create a new part without a description. So not only will CADLink catch that for me, it's flagged it for me nicely there in red. But if I come over to my messages tab in the top right, and maybe if I'm not sure why I'm seeing a red highlight, I have a nice summary here of any of these data validation issues. So if I click on any of these, it'll highlight the row for me. So CADLink is able to catch those data validation issues. And my save button in the top left, you might have noticed earlier when I mentioned it, it was grayed out. Well, it's grayed out because we have these data validation uh, errors here. So CADLink is going to catch this for me, and it's actually not going to let me save any bad data or try and save any bad data to SYSPRO. So with CADLink, because I have this here, I don't need to go back to SOLIDWORKS, fill in a description, and then come back. I can do this all inside of the window here. So I can type in a new description, maybe spring. And when I do that, you see my message goes away. And as I type in the last one, this also happens to be a spring. You'll see my messages are both gone now, and my save button is now enabled. So CADLink's doing that check live as I may change information in here. And at the moment here, it's given me a clean bill of health. So all of this would be accepted into SYSPRO in order to update and create bombs and stock codes. Along the same lines of the data validation, if I just scroll to the right a little bit here, some of these parts that we've got, if I'm going to create a new part, there may be some other fields that need to be filled in. Maybe not just description, but maybe something like part category, product class, warehouse here. And as I mouse over any of these in unit of measure as well, as I mouse over any of these, you'll see that these are dropdowns. These are the same values that I would find in SYSPRO for my allowed product classes or warehouses or unit of measure or whatnot. CADLink is actually grabbing these values live when I run CADLink and only allowing the user here to enter in an allowed value. So part of that, more of that data validation that CADLink is doing to make sure that, hey, if I try to create a new part, I don't try and give it a unit of measure part category that doesn't exist. Okay, and with that, that is the main CADLink bomb grid here. Everything on the left-hand side that is showing us the full multi-level bill of material with all of the items there. It's showing me the color comparisons, the color highlighting to show me about the comparison between SOLIDWORKS and SYSPRO to highlight any discrepancies in the data either way. Now, CADLink has a few other functionalities that I want to walk through. Drag my Zoom window over here. And they're all here on the right-hand side. So we were looking at our messages earlier, and those are now clear, but we've got a few other options here along the top. One of them is CAD data. So if I want to take a look at the, say, SOLIDWORKS mappings for, the SOLIDWORKS properties rather, for the parts that I'm looking at here, if I just click on any of these parts, you'll see those values change. This is kind of a window into the SolidWorks or CAD parts, properties rather, in my CAD model. So I don't have to go back and forth between the two to double check a mapping or double check a value here. I can just open this up and take a look. So for example, if we looked at that spring earlier, you'll see there is no property here for description. So this is a way that we can double check some of the data that's in the CAD side without necessarily needing to go back and forth. It's all available inside of the CADLink window. The next one is the Changes tab. Now, the Changes tab is a list of any bill of material changes that CADLink is going to make to SYSPRO. So it's really, it's more or less the same information that's on the left-hand side, but the BOM Changes tab is a summary of the changes. So you can imagine if I've got a really large bill of material here on the left-hand side, but perhaps I'm only going to make one or two changes. Maybe I'm swapping one part for another. In our changes tab here, we would only see those one or two line items. So it's another way of looking at the changes that we're about to make, checking that the changes we're about to make are the ones we want to make, and it gives another view on that that's maybe a little easier to digest in certain scenarios there. This changes tab and the grid itself actually can both be exported here to either Excel or PDF. So if you did want to use the changes tab or the whole grid with all of the comparisons for any kind of external reporting, it's easy enough to export it here out of CAD. Lastly, operations. So in the same breadth of bills of materials and editing the items that go on that bill of material with CADLink here, pulling those from the engineering system, we can also edit the operations. So in this window here, if I select say, let's take a look at one of these assemblies here. I don't think I have any existing on any of my demo data here, but I can go ahead and add operations. So I can add them one by one. I can come in here, select my work center. Again, this is a dropdown, so it's going to be the same list of work centers that you might have in your system. But I can go ahead and select the work center. I can go in here and select a second one and fully build that out in CADLink here, so that when I go ahead and save this into SYSPRO, these operations are added as part of that bill of material. I've only got a couple of fields here in my operations tab, but in the CADLink settings, I can go ahead and map any other operation field. So if I wanted to use my CAD model, say, to set up an operation, I can do that. I can I can set up many different operations through the CADLink settings, as well as different fields. So if I also wanted to pull in the runtime or the setup time, I can do that as well. The same thing goes, I should say, for the fields over here in the BOM grid. I've got a very basic list of fields, unit of measure, part category, class, warehouse, description. But in the CADLink settings, if we want to add any fields that are on the dot code or structure, then we can add those into this interface here and make them part of the mapping. The CADLink settings are flexible to allow you to map those settings all by yourself. So if you want to change a mapping just in the settings, add a new field, something you're pulling from SolidWorks, all those tools are yours with CADLink. Okay, so other than just the bill of material grid here, CADLink has a few other views and functionalities here that can let us see more information about the bill of material that we are updating in SYSPRO, as well as with our operations, with our manual parts here. CADLink can add additional information to that engineering transfer to really further flesh out that bill of material in SYSPRO and make it ready for the next stage inside the software. Okay, so that is the high-level overview demo. If you want to see another demo, maybe perhaps something with a model of one of your models, I'm always happy to set up additional demos, and I'll talk about that in a little bit here. But this was hopefully a good intro to the system. Let's swap back to my slides here. So we've seen CADLink is a great tool for the synchronization and the updating of SYSPRO, but don't just take our word for it. I want to share this testimonial here that I've picked out of the bunch. So Osteel is a maybe maybe obviously, but they are in Australia. And they shared some great words on working with our team here and how we were able to support their implementation or work out any issues that came up along the way, and just how great the PM team here was to work with. You can see that testimonial and many more on our success stories webpage on our website. So go ahead. There's that QR. It really should be a QR code here, but there's a link at the bottom that you can follow to see more testimonials and stories. You can take a look at our Google review page as well and see what folks have to say about working with us here and using CADLink. Okay, well, that is the webinar, everything I wanted to get to today. Are there any questions, Gabby? How are we doing on the Q&A there?
Yeah, we've got a couple questions here. We do have one from Ajay, and it reads, in case of discrepancy between CAD and SYSPRO, the update is allowed from CAD to SYSPRO, or is it allowed either way, chosen by the user?
Yep, you can set defaults. So if you want to always default to taking the CAD data to update SYSPRO, you can do that. But it is open kind of out of the box to the user to say, actually, for this very specific part, I maybe want to select and keep the SYSPRO value and write that back to the CAD model. But we can do both ways. So if you want to update uh, SYSPRO to match SolidWorks, you want to pull some information down, CAD could do both.
Thanks, Ajay. And then I do have a couple here that were sent directly to me. Is CADLink compatible with cloud CAD systems?
Yeah. So cloud CAD systems, they're sort of an up and coming thing in the CAD world. I think we mostly still see, your classic client installation of a SolidWorks or Inventor. But we're seeing more and more things like 3D Experience, Onshape, Fusion 360, and we're fully compatible with that. And we're even going to be rolling out a cloud version of CADLink so that the whole thing, CAD to CADLink to SYSPRO can all be done in the browser. So that's something we're excited about working on here.
Great. Thank you for that. And any other questions out there? I do have one here. What does implementation look like?
Sure. So for implementation, we here at QBuild, like I was saying earlier, we do all of the implementation of CADLink, and you'll be assigned a project manager or a developer. They're here in Toronto, where our head office is, and they'll walk you through. We'll normally start with a kickoff call where we'll walk you through all of the steps that we'll take along the way, just do intros and get some basic information. But then we'll walk you guys through install, configuration, training, and further testing after that. And it's all included in that fixed fee implementation.
Thanks, Carson. And then is CADLink compatible with Altium?
Yes. Yep. So Altium, AutoCAD Electrical, ePlan. I'm sure I'm missing a couple others, but we do the electrical integrations as well.
Wonderful. Well, if there's any other questions, we'll have another couple seconds here. But it seems as though we've reached the end of what was slated. Anything additional from your end, Carson?
No, I don't think so. I want to, thank everybody for jumping on. If there are further questions, please contact your CISPRO partner. You could reach out directly to me. I think my contact info is here somewhere. And happy to chat through. Part of what we do in sort of a pre-sales process is we have a bit of an intro chat, learn a little bit more about your business and how you guys are working, so that we can see if there's a fit there with CADLink, or if there's any tweaks that need to be made. And like I was saying, we have a great standard product, and we recognize everybody's a little bit different, so we like to start our process there with a bit of a discovery and a bit of learning, and go from there.
Great. Actually, we do have one more here that popped in from Brian Goodman. Hey, Brian, does CADLink offer implementation support?
Yes, yeah. So CADLink does so QBuild does all of the implementation for CADLink. So that's run by our team here, and that's just included in the pricing of CADLink.
Some. Well, thank you. I think, yep, this is pretty much all we have for today. Thank you again, Carson, for taking the time and, walking us through the demo and giving us some more background on CADLink and how it really helps support SYSPRO and ultimately our customers. And we thank everyone that's joined today for taking the time to listen and learn today. Please do reach out to your SYSPRO partners, your account managers, and out to, the QBuild team. We're all here to support you. So again, thanks all and have a great one.